Hello everybody, welcome to Deluxe Collectibles, and today I'm going to be sharing my opinion on whether or not I think LEGO Ninjago twist villains work within the series, and I'm kind of going to discuss this and tie it into a really fun fact that I saw on the Daily Ninjago Facts Twitter page, so I'll be sure to link them down below. Thanks so much for the really cool fact here, and we're going to jump straight into it here with that fun fact. So it basically says, in order to play the roles of twist villains, the Skull Sorcerer, of course, Vangelis, and the Ice Emperor Zane, of course, voice actors Brent Miller and Devin Mack were credited under pseudonyms, including Irvin M. Jordan and then Graham Palesad, as to not spoil the secret. So I found this really interesting, and it kind of made me want to discuss sort of twist villains in Ninjago and the different sorts of ways that they've done them in the past. So of course, with these two examples here of the Ice Emperor and then of course also the Skull Sorcerer, I feel like the Skull Sorcerer is a really special case because we're technically seeing them basically at the same time on screen. It's sort of a similar situation to like Harumi and then being revealed as the Quiet One. We sort of had her doing things at the same time, but we never really saw her at the same time. And of course, we don't see that as well with Vangelis and the Skull Sorcerer, but they're just so close to each other that I feel like it's a unique scenario like that. Of course, with something like the Ice Emperor, we never really got to see, of course, because Zane was the Ice Emperor and he wasn't doing that by choice. Of course, he was just kind of forced into this role, so it wasn't really so much of a scenario of like he's a twist villain, like he is evil, but more so of that he just got in this bad situation. But I found it really interesting still how they kind of try to cover that up in the credits so that you're not able to see that is as revealed. So I thought that was really interesting and a great sort of extra step that they go to make sure that that doesn't wind up getting spoiled. Now, personally, I kind of feel in the same sort of vein with LEGO Ninjago twist villains as I do sort of with Disney twist villains. I really like how they turn out, and I actually don't mind if it's more of like an obvious reveal, but that is the only thing with them, is that it is kind of obvious most of the time. Of course, I understand that Ninjago is just marketed to a younger audience as well, but of course there are older viewers who are watching it like myself who are kind of going to pick up on little things and also just kind of going to realize who the sort of villain is. I think that most people in season 11 kind of suspected that it was going to be Zane as the Ice Emperor because of course he went missing in the middle of that season and then this new villain appears. So coincidence? I think not. And then of course with Vangelis and then the Skull Sorcerer, it just made sense because of course Vangelis was basically in charge of Shintaro and it seemed like he was a person in power, of course, so you would kind of think that maybe he would be behind this sort of villainous persona that's kind of like beneath his city of Shintaro. So I think they make sense, but they are a bit more of like obvious reveals for who the villains are, but I still think it works, and I actually am still happy to see like more twist villains as in recent seasons, such as ones like that. And of course, you even have smaller twists as well, something like Unagami, let's take from season 12 Prime Empire, of course, where it was a bit of a twist that he wasn't like he was the game. You thought that it was more of like a villain at first just within the game, but it turns out that Unagami, of course, was the actual video game Prime Empire. So I found that really interesting as well. So you can kind of do twists in unique sort of ways where you might not see it coming as obviously. So I think it's smart how they're kind of able to experiment with that with their villains, and I would like to see more of that in the future. Of course, someone like Kalmar, I think, is an example of course, where they weren't intending him to be a twist villain by any means, of course, but it was almost him trying to deceive, of course, like members of the actual show, like Benthamar, things like that. So of course, he was trying to deceive them, but of course, that didn't wind up working out for him, and he wasn't really intending to be any sort of twist villain, even though I suppose it was a bit of a twist to Benthamar within the actual series. So there's sort of different ways to do it, whether you're trying to fool the actual audience or whether they're just fooling characters in the actual show. Like even Harumi, of course, when she gets revealed as the Quiet One, we get to spend the episode after that having her kind of still on this journey with Lloyd, and we know that she's the Quiet One, but of course Lloyd doesn't at that point, so it's kind of getting to see the reveal once again. So I like it when they do something like that because then they've let the audience know some piece of information, but the character doesn't know that piece of info, so it's really interesting to see the character kind of come to the same sort of conclusion that you already know of, and I think that feels kind of rewarding as well for the character development of that specific person. So I think it definitely works quite well within the Ninjago series. There could be some things that could maybe be refined with it to maybe make sure it's an absolute absolute twist villain, like we didn't even see it coming, but I also don't want them to sacrifice like that. It just wouldn't make sense, and I don't think they would do that, of course, but it's definitely sort of interesting. I think that maybe even the upcoming one of the Vengestone buyer, of course, could wind up being some sort of twist villain. Maybe it's a character that we already know of, something of that sort. I forgot another one, of course, the Island as well, of course, with Ronan in that. And just to let you know, I'm not trying to name all of like the sort of twist villains, but I tried to name a few that are at least in recent memory for me. But let me know, what are some of your favorite twist villains from Lego Ninjago? Let me know why they are some of your favorites. Was it the sort of way they did the reveal, or just the way the character acts and sort of the way they are in the series? So let me know all of that down below. And if you did enjoy this video, it would be highly appreciated if you could leave a like, also subscribe as well. If you would like to check out some of my other content, that would be highly appreciated. So thank you so much. I will see you all next time, and always remember, keep on collecting.